Today on the Failing Up podcast, we have Christian LeMere. He shares his journey of corporate success to real estate entrepreneurship, emphasizing the importance of consistency and aggressive patience in achieving success. They explore the mindset required to overcome setbacks and how failures can ultimately lead to unexpected blessings and growth opportunities. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. Let's jump in.
Welcome to another episode of the Failing Up podcast, Humble Lessons in Life and Business. I'm your host, David Huffaker. Thanks for joining us on another amazing episode as we unpack what has made successful people successful through their failures. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Bethany Voice.
I'm here to be the expert on failure. That way, just in case, because all our guests are so amazing.
You can be failure captain.
I am. Yeah, tag me in, please.
All right, I'm gonna get you a name tag. It's failure captain.
This is why I'm never a guest. I'm always just a co-host because it take way too long.
Whatever. You were a guest. You were like one of our first guests back in the day.
It was a 7-hour episode.
It was fun. Nice. I remember how much you told me how awesome I was. So I listened to that one a lot.
Yeah, you repeat it. Yep, absolutely.
Our guest today, Mr. Christian LeMere. What's up, brother?
How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. Yeah. Great to see y'all.
You are you're the super kid in real estate right now.
I am. He is the super kid. Yeah, absolutely.
Crushing it. Yeah, there are very few people that I look back and go, that guy could kick my tail. And Christian's one of them. Like just the pace and the journey that you're on.
Yeah,
so hopefully we can give you some insight as to where I made a bunch of mistakes so that you don't make them. But also just want to share your journey with people because you have a really cool backstory. So take a minute and introduce yourself to our guests that may be listening or watching.
Yeah, awesome. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Christian LeMere, and I'm the president of Move Up Home Group. And, you know, on paper, it looks like I have 10 years of real estate experience, which I do.
Yeah.
But have been with a publicly traded builder for about 8 years and made it to the pinnacle of my corporate career. And one day I just woke up in the middle of the night and decided I was going to get into general real estate right as we were coming out of 3% interest rates and
perfect timing.
home prices were fluctuating. And I said, you know, we're going to go make this happen and put our head down. And regardless of what's going on in the real estate environment, we're going to make it happen.
Well, that's what's so cool, I think, about you and about a lot of business owners in the real estate space is there is so much opportunity for anybody that wants to be successful if you're willing to do the work, right? And I think that the HGTV version of real estate versus the real world of real estate are vastly different, why we see such high turnover in it. And yet you've been very intentional. I'll never forget the first time I really met you, right? We sat next to each other on a plane, and you just had great question after question after question, and you're just very curious about success in the general real estate world. So start us off, a lot of podcasts focus on what you do right. Tell us about this, that, and the other. We want to know what you did wrong, right? We want to know where we know that we succeed our way or fell our way to success.
Sure.
When you think of failure, how do you interpret that? What does that mean in your world, in your mind? What do you think of when you think of failure?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, you know, when we think about failure, I guess it's easy to reflect back on a failure and really dig deep on what could you do different, right? And I think that first year in general real estate is where you experience the most failure and the most pain, and you commit to not doing it again, right? Yeah. And I think it goes back to the one thing. Like, what's the one thing that you're really, really good at that you can find ways every single day to make excuses around that one thing to not focus on it? Right. And that one thing for me is lead generation. And so just making it an intentional focus to lead gen every single day, like my life depends on it. I mean, of course, I have a coach.
Sure.
And he said to me, the building can be on fire. And until you smell smoke, don't move.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you start getting some success and people start wondering, what are you doing to get that success? You start making friends in the office. And I think it's important to remember, why are you showing up every day? What's most important? Who are you sacrificing for? And ultimately, it came down to the failure for me, of making friends and sharing all that information, which, you know, I'm comfortable sharing what I specifically do, but carving out the time to do that.
Well, the two things, we've heard this on a couple of different episodes. It's when you recognize that when I say yes to someone else's needs, that means I have to say no to my child when I get home, or I have to say no to my spouse on date night because I gave that time away to someone else. When you're that efficient with your time, it's a really hard thing to do as a business owner, as a leader, to be able to prioritize who to say yes to and we see, like, you have success. Most agents have the success and they get busy being busy doing the transaction, and they let their foot off the lead generation pedal.
Yes.
That has been the one thing in real estate for 40 years, 50 years, 2,000, however long, right? The answer is always lead generation is the most important. Like, you've heard it forever. Why do you think they shy away from it? Why not do the hard thing?
I think everybody wants muscle, but no one wants to go to the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, for an analogy, right?
Yeah, that's great.
It's the hardest thing to do. It's the biggest frog, if you will, every single day, right? Eat that frog. It's the biggest frog for sure. And
Why do we say that a lot? What makes it the frog, right? What makes it hard? Because we all go to the gym, we all work out, and at this point in our life, we kind of go like, well, it's hard, but it's necessary, right? And we actually found a way to love it, right? We get a little bit addicted to it, right? We love that euphoria that comes from being at the gym, right? How do you do that with lead generation, you personally?
Goals. I mean, I think having a long-term vision and looking at that every day, but also setting monthly goals. I mean, our team, we set monthly goals with everyone on our team, and keeping that in front of you, like, hey, why'd you show up today? What's your goal for today? And it really comes down to book one quality appointment a day.
That's it.
If we keep it that simple, success is right in front of us. And I'll never forget when we talk about first failures, but, in the beginning of this, if I didn't book an appointment, I felt inside like I failed.
Sure.
And I learned in general real estate that there's so many highs and lows, and it's a frequency, right? How do we bring that frequency in? And by following the schedule, I'll never forget when you said that to me. Hey, I followed my schedule today. By following my schedule, it's not did I fail or did I have a good day? I followed the schedule, and if I do that consistently over 240 prospecting days, I'm going to hit the results that I'm looking for.
Yep. And it is simple, not easy, right? And you recognize, and for me, it was a lot of making it fun, right? So standing up, I realized, like, when I'm on the phones, I want to pace, right? I want to move around. Having a bouncy ball, right? For me, it was a huge thing, right? Something to throw against the wall, right?
Right.
Having music playing, having snacks, having coffee was just ways of making it a little bit less sucky, right?
Well, and I think to your point, right? Like, everybody wants muscle. Nobody wants to go to the gym. I know all three of us work out, and yet I think it took me so long to get there because I realized getting that result was going to take longer than a week.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so it's the reality that it's not a quick fix.
Yeah.
There's no silver bullet to lead generation. There's no silver bullet to your fitness. And yet it really is time on task over time. And so how do you combat that? Hey, I've been doing this for 30 days. I'm a brand new agent. I want to be just like you.
Yeah.
I have hit the office every day, and I'm on the phones. I'm doing everything, and the result still hasn't shown up.
Yeah.
How do you combat that mindset, or what would you tell that person?
Stay consistent. I mean, I've had weeks where I don't book an appointment, right? And those doubts start to creep in. But attitude plus consistency plus time equals success. And I think just staying consistent and having, our word for this year is aggressive patience. You've got to be aggressive in everything you do and be patient when you're not getting the results that you're expecting. And truthfully, from when I started to where we are today, we've tripled down on prospecting to get the same amount of results.
Yeah. So what's necessary in this market?
Yeah. So ultimately, it's like, what's your goal? What is it, a volume goal? Is it a unit count? Whatever that looks like. And then you got to work backwards on what do I need to do to achieve that? And if that means you got to triple down on prospecting or triple down on circle prospecting or whatever your one thing is, whatever it takes to make that end goal happen, that's just, it takes the emotion out of it, right? Like for me, I know it takes 50 contacts to book an appointment. So I have to have 50 quality conversations with a buyer or a seller before someone commits to an appointment. So instead of, rejection, oh my goodness, this doesn't work anymore, the emotion's out of it because I'm like, hey, that's 4 no's. Well,
Yeah.
Now I'm 46 away from a yes.
Yeah.
Just got to keep it moving.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Right. And you got to be thick skinned. I think ultimately having that rhino thick skin, rhino like mentality,
Yeah.
charged with a single minded purpose, that's so important in this environment.
Yeah, Rhinoceros Success was one of the books I picked up. My mom gave it to me actually with Who Moved My Cheese and Rhinoceros Success. For some reason, I was a junior in college. I can still remember her handing them to me. And Rhinoceros Success being one of the thick skin. I think, we do relate it a lot to exercise, but you're not going to go to the gym for 30 days and get a 6-pack of abs, right? Like, it doesn't mean that the process doesn't work. And we talk a lot about embracing the suck or whatever. I'll be honest with you. For most of us, you spend more time in angst and pain worrying about what's not happening in your life than if you would just get into action and go do it. Right? I mean, you're so
we've talked
caught
about
up
that.
in the brain time that's spent about what happens when I fail that you're just avoiding what ultimately when you do it, you go, oh, this
not
isn't
that
that
bad.
hard. Right? Like, this isn't that bad. Like, hang on, I get to pick up the phone and call and talk to people. And let's be honest. The fear is that everybody's going to be like, you're the worst person on planet Earth. Never call me again. Click. And that happens occasionally, right? I mean, it just doesn't happen that often. So you go like all of these fantasies that you've built up in your head as to why not, right? Like, well, what if? Right? What if you actually did do the activities? What if you did do the work?
Right.
So kudos to you for kind of going through that. I hear what you're saying, right? I heard you say you've made some failures and mistakes, and you've learned what not to do. And yet we know that it's an evolution, right? And 3 years from now, you might find that those exact mistakes are the things that will propel your business forward at a different level.
Yeah.
What have you seen in the past where you've run into instances of a mistake or a failure that you thought like, oh man, right? Like I really just sunk the ship, and yet ultimately ended up being a blessing in disguise, right? Or ultimately ended up setting you on a path that helped you achieve more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I think there's many avenues we could go with this, but when you start getting some quick success, it's easy to stop lead genning. I mean, we're coming back to the same thing, right? You get a little heavier in the admin time. You take your foot off the gas because you're like, man, I got 5 closings this month. Everything's great. And then you're nurturing these closings because you want to truly cultivate the best client experience possible. And then you wake up 30 days later, these deals close, and you're like, oh my goodness, my pipeline's gone. And so I think for me, it's about just prioritizing what is important and urgent. And it's continuing that pipeline because we're going to service the clients once they start working with us. We're going to provide a great experience.
What a relevant answer. I've always said, and tomorrow's business is always more important than today's. And it doesn't mean that we don't love our clients, but you're right. We're going to provide a good experience. So you look at the reviews of agents, 92% of people want an agent involved in the transaction, and overwhelmingly 87% say they would hire you again. So the math alone says people are pretty satisfied with what we do. For agents, we have to learn to let go and to allow a third party or some type of leverage to manage that piece. But I'll tell you, it doesn't even change as you get bigger and bigger with the team. We're looking right now, we probably had our strongest Q1, our strongest 4 months in years. And I see collectively, how many agents do we have, Bethany, at the Huffy Group? 45, 50, something like that?
Yeah, we're like sitting at 47 now.
And they've gotten, they've had such great months that now all of a sudden you're going like, where are the agreements, right?
Yeah.
And you see collectively this, it's almost like
it's
this
the same
tide,
thing.
right? Like it's just like they're all collectively going like, what are you talking about? Like we have like 52 closings on the books for April, and I'm going like, yep. Now how do you? You're constantly, as you're growing an organization, trying to figure out like, do you have the people? And I think as you get larger, one of the only reasons to really scale out that big becomes it makes the evolution a little bit more. There's not as much ebb and flow in it. And in any given month, you have some agents that are on their high and some that are on, and so they're battling, right? So it marginalizes the business out month over month.
Sure.
But you still see it. I think it's such a great answer because it's relevant to our industry so much. Of it's always that.
Up and
I
down.
always said like my goal is to not duplicate my best months, is to eliminate my worst months.
Yeah.
Right? So if I can look back at 2023 and go, okay, October and March were really weak months. Why was that?
Yeah.
If I can just get them to average, my whole average goes up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it was more about eliminating the weak months, not
Sure.
necessarily trying to duplicate the best month every month. That was a strong strategy for us the first few years as we were growing.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think right now, especially as, collectively top producers, right? It's easy to get complacent once you see some success. I believe firmly right now that it's more important how you show up after a win than how you show up after a loss.
Love that.
So we talk about failures. It's easy to reflect on a failure. Like I said, when you have a win, when you go knock down a $3 million listing and you're like, hey, I'm good.
Yeah.
Are you following the process? Are you following your schedule? How you show up after a win is critical right now.
Yeah. And you have to learn, like, the outcome is irrelevant. It's the process. It's what have I set up? And to me, that's the integrity piece, where it's like, I said I was going to do this. I didn't say I was going to prospect 2 hours a day, 50 contacts, whatever my target is, until I achieve X. I said I was going to do it every day.
Yeah.
Now, over the course of 6, 8, 12 months, I'm always backing up. We practice the 12-week year, right? So each quarter, what needs to happen this quarter? What can I focus on? I'm going to be loyal to it for these 90 days, and then ultimately evaluate it, adjust, right? Make adjustments, things like that. And that's that constant and never-ending improvement that you go through. So when it comes to failure for you, right? When you're thinking about leading others, right? Because it's sometimes as a top performer, you're pretty good at managing yourself. Where do you see your teammates or your agents failing, and how do you help them cope with that?
Yeah, great question. So we've got 26 listings out right now, and part of where we're struggling as a team is having those direct conversations with people once they are on the market of what is the market perceiving, and just having those uncomfortable conversations, because ultimately people hired us to be honest with them, and shying away from those honest conversations and closing our eyes and pretending like the house is going to sell. It's just going to end up an expired listing.
The metric used to be, and the market's so different than it was 5 years ago. It used to be 2 weeks with no showings or 10 showings with no offers, and it needed a price reduction, right? We're going to look at marketing. We know we're pretty good at marketing. It's got those covered. So that was the standard. Today, because homes sell so quickly, right? The average days on market is still less than 2 months, which is crazy. It may be like 5 days with no showings and 5 offers or 5 showings with no offers. For us, getting real intentional about it was a metric that we had that conversation at the listing appointment to say we're going to have this conversation if this happens, so that when it happens, it's less of a hey, we need to have the conversation, and more like, hey, we kind of already said we were going to do this. Great agents will actually go out and get, okay, well, we're willing to do this. Let's go ahead and sign a price adjustment for 2 weeks from now, especially if we're going to take a slightly overpriced listing, right? We may want to coach our sellers to say, hey, I'm willing to list it at this price, but please understand, like, the market is going to tell us pretty fast if we're on point or not. And being able to kind of make that adjustment. So that's awesome. Let's ask this. When you think about life in general, right? At the end, and you're kind of looking back and regrets, or trying to prevent regrets now, right? I know you're pretty intentional and pretty thoughtful man. What are you trying to avoid? What are you hoping that you can wire around now so that you don't have those regrets at the end of your life looking back?
Yeah. I mean, I think I definitely believe that real estate's the vehicle for me. It speaks to my heart and my family. We're family owned and operated. My wife runs all the back office, which allows me to focus on helping people. And I think it goes back to why I left the builder. And I realized for so long I was chasing someone else's legacy. And you get on all these corporate Zoom calls, and it's like, well, we have a meeting over here. And then you spend 4 hours in that meeting, and you're like, well, we could have summed that up in 15 minutes. But we sat there, had 6 cups of coffee, talked about the same things. And ultimately, it came down to I wanted to take action. I wanted to be in 100% control of my future success. And when I woke up that morning and decided to get into general real estate, I wanted to leave a legacy for my family. Whether my son decides to get into real estate or not, I know that real estate is the vehicle to help others get what they want. And if I help enough people get what they want, I can ultimately financially free my family, which gives me more time with my kids. And, for me, I was working weekends, 7 days a week, pouring into people that, whether they wanted it or not, I probably wanted it more than them, which is my greatest asset and my greatest weakness. And finally, I wanted to focus on myself for once. And so, I just want to make sure that I don't miss soccer practice,
Yeah.
baseball.
The legacy piece.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
That's what's most important now. And when your little one, when you go to walk out the door today and your little one comes up and hugs you,
Right.
2 years old, and you just, as you get older,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
you embrace that moment so much more. And as I
yeah.
am progressing in age.
Yeah, just wait. Mine are teenagers, and I've told this story a few times. It was probably 6-7 months ago, and we were somewhere, and Jagger, my youngest, walked up and he put his hand in mine, and I just recognized in that moment, I was like, "This could be it.
That could be
This could be the
last
last.
time.
I mean,
Yeah.
how many times do you go hold your father's hand?
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, this could be it, right? And
Yep.
just being aware in that moment and knowing like that's what we're doing it for, right? And I know that's touchy feely and whatever.
Yeah.
But you've done such a phenomenal job. I don't know why everyone. We complicate it so much, and yet you've leaned into the
Yeah.
models, you've asked the right questions, and you've just simply went out and built. Not to say you've been perfect at it,
Yeah.
but you've been willing to learn, right? And you've been willing to grow and develop, and your business is now a reflection of your dedication to that and your wherewithal. So kudos to you. If somebody listening wanted to get in touch with you to learn more about your business or to be just in your world, what's the easiest way for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we're on all social media, so you can. Instagram is Realtor Christian
MySpace.
LeMere.
Still
MySpace.
there?
Yeah, we got all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, my cell phone, I can give that out
Yeah.
if you'd
Yeah,
like.
how
And
about it?
You have a website too, right, Christian?
do.
Yep.
We do. And this was a pretty good belief builder, but our website's moveuptn.com. We put a new construction home under contract this week. And, you know, of course, we post on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We post on all social media platforms. And the next morning, we got a phone call from an agent that said they wanted another new construction that we hadn't put on the market yet, but we put it on our website. And this is a year of updating this website with
Yeah.
new listings and have never had an inbound lead from the website.
It works.
And we put a $3.3 million contract,
Amazing.
home under contract, just by
Yes.
staying consistent,
Yeah.
just like
That's
we're
it.
talking about.
That's
Well, and if you, you know, Christian, I know you do an amazing job of leading from the front, and I get the pleasure of being a part of these conversations. Not everyone and not all our listeners have the same environment, so we hope you will reach out to Christian if you'd like to get involved in a deeper community around, you know, these conversations and what it looks like to fail forward. You can reach us also at www.level8platform.com. We'd love to chat with you, and you can connect with David and I, and we'd be happy to get you in contact with Christian as well, because I think you have so much to offer. So thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.